All right, everybody, come on in and grab your cocktail tonight. We are sipping. And why? Because tonight the glitz flayed and the gavel's going to drop. Welcome to Celebrity Court of Public Opinion, where fame is fragile, scandals are evidence, and your reputation will always be on trial. I'm your judge and host, Al Reynolds, and tonight, guess what? We're ripping the curtain off of celebrity chaos and holding the stars to a higher standard. That's right. No spin, no filters, just truth, raw and unfiltered. We've gotten a fallen NFL hero caught in a dogfighting nightmare, a real housewife of Atlanta still fighting for a happily ever after, and a chilling twin murder mystery that deserves more answers than what we're getting. We also have an NFL celebration turned controversial, and a hip-hop queen and a toxic tango. And the Raps game's most famous baddie wondering if love is still worth the bell. This is more than headlines. This is justice with the edge. Court is now in session. And joining us tonight are two of our legal beagles, author of Everything Shit They Never Taught You in Law School, author Jason Weiss. Welcome back to Celebrity Court.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very excited to be here. No other place I'd want to be on a Friday night.
Are you sipping or not sipping, counselor?
I am sipping like always.
All right, and joining him is that fiery civil attorney, Shatan Turner. Shatan Turner, counselor, welcome back to Celebrity Court.
Hey, Your Honor. Hey, Attorney Wise. I'm glad to be back. I am sipping on water, maybe.
Well, we hope there's something mixed in that water, Attorney Turner. All right, everybody, be sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, be sure to hit the share button. Invite some friends over to learn about the law on the backs of these celebrities. Also, don't forget to turn on your notifications. And as always, drop down in that chat because we love to hear from you. First up, once cheered by crowds for touchdowns, now Leshon Johnson is trending for tragedy. He's accused of orchestrating a multi-million-dollar dogfighting ring. Yep, you heard me right. Over 200 dogs and alleged illegal gambling. From gridiron greatness to graphic violence, has his legacy gone to the dogs? Bailiff, let's take a look. All right.
It says this is the most dogs they've ever confiscated from one person. They say Leshon Johnson operated Mall Cant Kennels in Broken Arrow and Crazy Side Kennels in Haskell. Kevin Chambers is the state director for Animal Wellness Action. He's helped investigate cases like this before.
I'm glad to see them taking dog fighting and animal fighting in general seriously.
Court documents say Johnson bred Grand Champion fighting dogs to produce puppies that also had fighting traits that were popular with others who run dogfight operations. Johnson pled guilty to dogfighting charges in Hughes County in 2004 and was given 5 years probation.
You would think after the first time he would have quit, but he didn't. And we see that over and over again. So the punishment needs to be strong. The public has asked for that. They have made it a felony for that reason.
Chambers says he's thankful that the dogs were rescued.
Once you lose that empathy, then you lose it against both humans and animals. You know, it's in our best interest to police that strongly.
All right, I'm going to go to you, Attorney Weiss. Let's talk about this, right? Because one thing that I have to say, right, and I've said this before when Michael Vick was going through his situation, right? The breeding part is okay, right? Mm-hmm. That's not illegal, right? It's okay. It's legal to breed dogs because I grew up in the South, and breeding dogs was a thing. It didn't matter what your occupation was. You could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be a professional athlete. Breeding dogs help bring in income, especially if that's your thing. Where did he go wrong? And what are we talking about because what I want to know, what is he actually facing under the animal cruelty laws?
So he is facing multiple felony counts, and he is also where he could face up to 5 years in prison on each count and a $250,000 fine. Um, and because of the fact that he is a repeat offender, this is not his first rodeo. He is probably not going to get any of the leniency that he got the first time. The first time he got what was called a deferred sentence, which means that it's basically probation. If you listen to what they say and you test positive and you're where you're supposed to be and all that good stuff and all of that, you'll never see a day in jail. This time, he's probably going to be doing some jail time. And I think he was caught with 190 dogs. That's the most ever taken. And this is now federal because I believe that he's crossed state lines with the dogs. And
that's a RICO charge.
Well, not a RICO, but it's for selling, transporting, and delivering dogs for use in animal fighting. And because the animals went over state lines, it became federal. And he is going to be prosecuted by the Department of Justice, not the attorneys or the state attorney in Oklahoma. So this isn't good.
What does that mean?
It means that he is facing federal time, not state. And when you get convicted for federal time, you usually serve 100% of the time, not 60% or 50% where you can parole out and get, nope, federal, you serve the entire time.
All right, I'm gonna go to you, Attorney Turner. What is this crime treated as seriously as it should be? Or let me ask the question. Why does it seem like all the dog fighting that we hear about are done by Black athletes?
I don't know, but I do know this. Here's something my mother told me long ago. And she was like, Americans care more about their dogs than they do about people, right? Yep. So, and it follows with animals generally. You've seen all these people who are throwing like paint on people for PETA and how they came from Michael Vick about the dog fighting all those years ago and did not come from, I won't say people's names because I don't want anybody to come after the show, but other athletes who had beat their wives. People came up with all of these explanations for why these women deserve to get punched in the face by these athletes and didn't come up with any sort of defenses for Michael Vick because he was doing this dog fighting. And even now, it has been, I think, over 20 years since Mike Vick got caught in it, and he still can't shake the allegations and the scrutiny. So I'm not sure if Black athletes are doing it more than others, although we do know there's some cultural habits that lead to certain activities, like cockfighting tends to be more popular in Latin communities than it is in other communities. And although I've been Black my whole life, I've never seen anybody, ain't nobody ever invite me to a dog fight, but maybe it's something in certain aspects of the Black community that are more popular. And so that's how the athletes get involved. I'm just not sure.
I've been to them, so yeah, that says a lot about me. So I'm excited for that. And the other thing is here that these dogs are pit bulls. I can say that a couple of counties here in South Florida, you may not have a pit bull in your home without an extra license and extra insurance because those dogs are inherently dangerous. So if you wanted a pit bull as an owner, you need to do more to protect other people. And that just lets you know how dangerous this is and how unfair this is to those poor animals. That sucks. I'm sorry.
Okay, Abby and White it has a flip on the slavery aspect. It has a flip on the slavery aspect. Well, let me ask you this, because it just seems to me when we talk about, because it seems like Michael Vick, like you said, can't shake it. We have this new athlete now that they've waited over a long period of time before they even stopped it. They watched it and monitored this for years until he got this outrageously large number of dogs in the circle of the fighting and everything. Are we as a society complacent in creating athletes who self-destruct, especially after retirement, after using them as professional athletes and making money off of them? Where is the support to help them after their league time?
You know, I see where you're going with this, Your Honor, and I have to say that there is no
Doesn't matter.
support for other professionals who like might need guidance after they retire. And so the fact that these multimillionaires would need some support, so some intentional guidance is like kind of offends my sensibilities. That being said, makes
Even
me
if they
wonder,
have like CTE from being hit, he
well, it
wasn't
makes me
wearing that.
wonder if Attorney Weiss and I need to go into this business, because whether they require it or not, it seems to me that they could
That they
benefit
needed.
from wisdom. Not everybody has people in their lives who can provide them with appropriate direction. And so whether the question is whether stupid people could use some help, I think that is always yes.
Okay.
And I don't think he's one of the CT guys. I think he only played in the league for about 5 years. He wasn't a huge star in the league, and I think, look, here's the problem, right? He did it once before. He got out with a slap on the wrist.
Right.
Why are you doing it again?
Making
There's
money. He doesn't have a way to make money.
You know what? Now he's not going to have to worry about money because he's going to get, 3 meals and a clean cot to sleep on, and probably as much sex as he wants.
Yeah, 3
Or
hots
doesn't want.
3 hots
But
and a
yeah.
cot. All right, speaking of 3 hots,
about the pit bulls though. So like my sister-in-law or former sister-in-law, for whatever reason, she likes big dogs, she likes pit bulls, and every time my children are there, I am anxious because people do not always appreciate how their dogs can pop off, especially considering the unpredictability of children. And so I'm curious about those laws in Florida that you mentioned, Attorney Weiss, and maybe that'll become my cause here to try to get Pennsylvania to have similar laws, because it makes sense to me. There have been countless cases where pit bulls have like bitten children's faces, killed people,
Right.
all that kind of thing. So whether Black people are more in love with dog fighting and pit bulls, I don't know. But I do think that the scrutiny for people who are breeding killers, right? Because that's really what we're talking about. What should we do to individuals who've decided to breed killers and to have them among the general population? And so, I mean, I think to that extent, there probably should be a swift and firm response.
JP Mills says cockfighting is popular in the Latin, Hispanic, and Caribbean culture, but we don't see them under that type of scrutiny. I think it's because they're not dogs.
Birds are small. I got a broom.
Birds taste good when you cook them right, too. So,
oh no. Christine R says, I was chased by a dog when I was a kid, and it was frightening. Deaf God said, I love my harmless cats.
see, look, I got a big dog. I got a black lab. He's 105 pounds, but he don't go nowhere. He don't do nothing. So, but pit bulls are bred for that, and they also have those locking jaws that you can't get them off, and that's the problem with pit bulls.
Right. Speaking of can't get them off, Kenya Moore has twirled through reality fame, but not this drama. It's unscripted. Her divorce from Marc Daly is boiling over. They have custody fights, money moves, and legal loopholes. Is this a power play, or is Kenya finally taking control back? Attorney Turner, talk to us, since you are a resident divorce attorney. How do courts determine custody when both parents claim?
I have particular empathy for this Kenya Moore case because of my current situation, and also what my situation has motivated me to do is to learn more about the family law system and to try to identify how these like skewed things happen. So to your question about what does the court look for, the standard for determining custody is always the same. What's in the best interest of the child? For this case, for Kenya and her husband, I think his name was Marc, she got custody of the child. She got full or primary physical custody. They shared legal custody. And he had to pay her $2,000 a month in child support and then $1,000 a month to the child's college fund. Since they got divorced and since his custody arrangement was arranged, he has gotten into some money trouble. So I've never done family law because I thought that I had too much of a bleeding heart and I'd be all like caught up in people's problems. Because if you haven't been able to tell, alligators, I'm also a little bit nosy. So I'd be all in people's business. I wouldn't be able to have my own life. And so I've never done family. That said, I have done defense work for victims of domestic violence, and there's some intersections. So the continuing legal educations that I've done for that has discussed some family law principles. And so what I suspect is as his monetary issues have increased, he's become more motivated to try to get custody of this child, because in Pennsylvania, they're not in Pennsylvania, but this is similar in other states, the tipping point to how much custody someone gets has to do with whether or not they have 50-50 custody or whether or not it slips into like 60-40. And so one of the judges up here who was doing the CLE, the continuing legal education, said she could always tell if it was about money because the parents would be fighting over where the child slept on Sunday nights, because where the child slept on Sunday nights would tip it from 50-50 into a different percentage. And then that person would automatically be entitled to support. He's been evicted from apartments. He's been found to be delinquent on leases, and he's got all of these mounting financial troubles. And so he may be looking at his child as a way to provide for those expenses that he has. So, like you see, there's almost $500,000 in lease dispute. He's like, shit. Oops, I'm not supposed to say that on the show. I can't afford the $3,000 a month that I have committed to. So how can I get some relief from that? Well, I just want the kid more because now I love the child more.
Now that he has all this debt, will the court re-examine his child support and the giving the $1,000? Would they reassess that or no?
Well, here's the thing. Not necessarily. Children do not require less food because their father was foolish. Right? The child support is based on what the child needs. That's why the standard is the best interest of the child. And so the real thing for him is whether Kenya would relinquish her rights to it so that he could get a reduction. Or, like I said, he could have the child more and therefore his support obligation would decrease. $2,000 a month is not really a whole lot for a kid. Right. Like when you factor in all the child's expenses and with the price of eggs, as Danielle Cameron would say if she was on tonight, like the price of eggs alone suggests that they should get some stuff. And I've always had some issues with this whole divorce thing because remember when we talked about this months ago, one of the arguments that he made was that he shouldn't have to pay for this child at all because he and Kenya had an agreement beforehand that he wasn't supposed to be responsible for the child. And that actually fell flat because one thing the court believes that some men do not, and they find out when they get to the child support hearing, is they made the child, they're responsible for the child, regardless of what kind of side agreement they had, because agreements that are unconscionable and against public policy are not enforceable. So the court is not going to, so alligators, if you are a man and you're trying to hit it and quit it, no, if you create a baby and she seeks child support, you will have to pay. That's just how the system works because the court does not condone deadbeats.
Okay, hold that thought right there. Alligators, I need your help. First, I'm going to read Christine R's message, comment. She said, you can't let losers stick their peen in you. Now you're dealing with all this foolishness. All right, Christine.
That part, she ain't wrong.
Venetia Phillips says, what has it got to do with him getting evicted? I think we just explained that, right? Sir Benjamin said he was so arrogant, not surprised he got money woes. All right, so listen. I need you algorithms to help me out here, and then I'm going to come back to this question with you, Shaitan. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure about this, allegedly, remember, Kenya could not have kids. All right? Remember. So if I'm not mistaken, it's his sperm, but not technically her egg. Right?
Maybe, yeah.
They put his sperm with someone else's egg inside of her, and she carried it. Algoriters, jump down in the chat. Am I right about this? I think I'm pretty sure about this. Or if I'm wrong, help me figure out Reynolds. Oh, Lord.
Even if that's true, I can break that down for you. So
yes, okay. She said, can you use a donor egg? That's right. So maybe that, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying maybe that was what that's what the conversation was between him and her, right? Look, just give me the sperm. I can't make a child. I'm getting a donor egg. So it'll be my responsibility. Don't worry about it. If you just give me the sperm, right? Which I can see possibly happen, especially for these women on these reality shows, because, you know, having a baby, getting married, all of that buys them more time and gives them a storyline. So does any of that matter? Or could it matter?
Not for child support necessarily. So there's two issues that are relevant here. One, they were married when they had the child, and most states have a presumption of paternity when you have a child in marriage. Second, if they did use a donor egg, there would have been a contract whereby the donor of the egg donor would have relinquished her parental rights, assigned them to Kenya and or him, right? And so then Kenya had the baby, and at that point it was a wrap, right? So his sperm, right, again, for the algoriters, whether you shoot the club up or you give a sample and they create an embryo, and I did say that, and they put it in your wife, either way, it's your baby, right? You did the same thing that you would have done otherwise, which is provide the sperm. So he may have had, and I don't know that he's got a ghetto mindset, but he may have had some logic in his head that said somehow I'm less connected to the baby, and what this conversation I'm having with Kenya is different than it otherwise would have been. But the fact that they were married made a difference.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Attorney Weiss is going to say something.
No, I don't know what I was going to say.
I just find this very interesting because I can see a conversation in my head about, you know, wanting a child real bad, right? I can hear you guys typing, ma'am. You and Jason.
My hands are off. I'm not typing.
Put your thing on mute when you type. I can see a conversation where she's like, all I need is for you to donate the sperm. And they go, you know, especially if they can't make it. But I wonder if there was a real conversation on who would be responsible, because was he working then?
Well, we would have heard that story now. We would have heard it back then. We would have heard something, right? He would have come out and he would have said, look, she wanted to have a child. She couldn't. So we did in vitro. We did whatever. And I didn't even participate. I just go ahead and donated, and what she did with it. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I think we would have heard that story if that was the case. The only thing that he's saying is he makes less money than her, so he shouldn't have to pay any child support. And yeah, I mean, this has been going on since what? 2019? We're 6 years in.
Yeah, that's what I'm like.
The argument that he was just a donor because they were married. So they're also like, because I know way too much about this for a variety of reasons, not because of my own children, but for some stuff I do at work. But there have been cases with celebrities in that exact situation who never married, but they were dating. And they're like, hey, I'm not on the hook. Or the woman's like, stay out of my life. You were only a donor. And the guy, for whatever reason, decides he wants a relationship with the kid. And remember, we also talked about that with, what show was that guy on? He had matching pajamas and they were going to get married. And he said he was just a donor. But then the mother of the children.
Love is Blind.
Yes, Love is Blind.
Love is Blind.
Yes. And he was saying I was only a
donor.
But
I wanted to be involved. He went right.
Right. But then there were all these pictures of him celebrating holidays and birthdays with the children. And that like imploded his engagement. So what I will also say to the algoriters is whenever you make children with another person intentionally, whether it's because you had sex or because you used in vitro, it is complicated when you know them. If you don't want to have a relationship with the child and you don't want to pay child support, then you need to go to the clinic, men, give a sample, have it be used with someone you don't know, and then there can't be an argument made that somehow you're responsible. But if you know the person you're having the baby with, then you get what you get.
Wow.
Go to
Okay,
the clinic,
everybody.
get your $50, and go buy yourself a carton of eggs.
Oh my God. Okay, everybody. The lawyers have said what they said. Be sure to hit that like button. The likes aren't liking. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you already subscribed, hit the share button. Don't forget to turn on your notifications. And as always, we love it when you drop down into the chat. Next up, this story makes me sad. It's the kind of story that chills the soul. Twin brothers, yes, twin brothers, 19 years old, were found dead in the mountains in Georgia. No suspects, no closure. Is it foul play, a tragic accident, or something far more sinister? And why isn't this story making national headlines? That's why I'm covering it on this show. Jason, I'm going to throw to you. Before we do we have a video on this, or do we just have pictures? Okay, here we go, just pictures. Okay, Jason, I'm going to throw to you. Tell me, are authorities dropping the ball here due to the bias or lack of media pressure? And why is it that this one particular firefighter is being charged?
Others found in Towns County near the North Carolina line, 90 miles from their home in Lawrenceville. The GBI initially investigating this as a murder-suicide, but tonight the family says they're not buying it. 11 Alive's Cody Alcorn spoke with them just a few hours ago. He's live for us in our newsroom with more on this investigation and what the family has to say, Cody.
Well, Jennifer, the brothers Kydir and Nazir Lewis were twins. The GBI says a hiker found their bodies at the top of Bell Mountain on Saturday morning. Both had been shot. The family couldn't believe it when they got the call hours later, knowing the twin brothers were supposed to be in Boston visiting friends.
We want answers. We want to know exactly what happened to the twins.
Nazir and Kydir Lewis.
Those my nephews.
Just a few weeks shy of their 20th birthday.
I can get past it. They're gone.
The twins' uncle, Raheem Bronner.
They're very protective of each other. They love each other. They're like inseparable. So
basically, what the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, whatever that's worth, has found so far is they're saying it's a murder-suicide, and they're saying that no, there's no way that could be there. And
what's a murder-suicide?
So a murder-suicide would be that you go ahead and you kill the other person, and then you kill yourself.
What?
So, yep, that's a murder-suicide. That's exactly what it is. Kill someone else and then take your own life. So it's like a Romeo and not a Romeo and Juliet type thing, but along those lines. Now, the reason that this is actually in the press right now is not even because of these two tragically, passed away young men. It has to do with the other gentleman who's in that picture over there, who's the firefighter. And that firefighter took pictures and leaked things to the media, and he is being charged with the obstruction of justice. And he is being charged with taking photos of the scene and sharing them publicly. So he is being charged with misdemeanor obstruction of justice.
Now, I got to tell you this, Jason, and Shaitan, you're on mute. I got to tell you this, Jason. I'm glad he did it because we were not getting enough media attention on this story to start with. And it wasn't until he got charged with leaking it, or they forced him to, come to the carpet because of the pictures that were going around, that it's now seeping into mainstream media. What were you going to say, Shaitan?
Oh, I was listening. I was not about to say anything.
Okay, so what happens when you get a stall like this? And does this mean that the county or the sheriff's office, they are abandoning criminal charges? Is that why they're trying to say a murder-suicide?
No, I mean, basically what they're saying is that one of the brothers killed the other one and then killed himself. So there would be nobody alive. There'd be nobody to charge. There'd be nothing to do. And the other thing
that just doesn't seem right to me.
And that's what the family is saying. They're saying that these two boys loved each other. They were each other's best friends. They were going to start a clothing line. They had their whole future ahead of them. And I believe that. But at the same time, if one of them was so troubled and they were as close as they were, you never know, right? I mean, look, my grandfather and my great uncle, they were identical twins. My great uncle was on his deathbed, and my grandfather showed up in the room, touched his hand, and he came out of a coma. Lived for many more years. They died almost a full year to the day apart. That's how close these two guys were. So if one of them was going through something, he may have said, look, I'm going to stop your suffering and do it. I don't think that's what happened. It's just
because when you find,
and this guy's a volunteer firefighter. That's the other thing. So he was at the scene because of his position within the county and as someone that's supposed to help. And he took those pictures and put them out there.
So do you think he was being malicious?
No, I think he was being greedy. I think he wanted his minutes and fame, and he probably leaked it to TMZ or somebody else. And I think that's where it happened.
So if I was the family, I would want to go back through their son's text messages.
I'm sure they're going through it. I'm sure they're going through text messages.
They were going on vacation to somewhere. They were going on a trip somewhere. They were headed to the airport, right? And they never made it to the airport. They never made it to where they were originally going.
They died on top of a mountain. They were preparing to start a clothing line. No, it said they were preparing.
No. They were going on a trip. Algorithm jumped down into the chat. They were going on a trip. And the reason why the parents were looking for them was because they never made it to their destination. They never made it to the destination where they were going. And so then that's when they started looking for them. Am I right?
Someone says to Boston.
Yeah.
Yes, they were going to Boston. That's right. I remember now. They were flying to Boston, but they never made it to Boston. So the parents were concerned. Where did they go? My question is, how did they get hours outside of where they were? Check Uber. I want to see all types. I want to see cell phone. I want to see where did they ping on the services. I feel like this says fishy all over it.
I mean, it might, but I don't think we should conflate what the firefighter did with what happened to the boys, because now there's no allegation or tie to him and them beforehand. So what he did is what I think Attorney Weiss said. He capitalized on an opportunity that presented itself to him because he happened to be a first responder. Right. What happened to them, I think, remains a question, and the things that you're asking are relevant to resolving that. And so there was no note, right?
Right.
There is just these suspicious deaths. And so I think the family is right to continue this. And in the one case, like, you could argue that the firefighter did the family a favor by elevating.
Yes, that's what I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he did it, because I think I remember reading this around the Jeffrey Dahmer situation. I'm not sure, but Georgia has one of the highest incidents of missing young Black men, that they never seem to be able to find the reason or cause of their missing or their death. This reeks of something undercover and sweeping something underneath. If there were two, and I'm sorry, if there were two white twins missing like this, I promise you, in a murder-suicide, we would have read about this all over all of the national media outlets. I don't care. I'm pretty sure that we would have, it wouldn't have taken some volunteer firefighter taking pictures of the scene of the crime to get this type of attention. People would want justice right away, especially if the parents went on national television crying for answers.
Al, I'll raise you one better. If there was just one white child that this happened to, right? The twin factor really should have multiplied the interest, but for some reason it didn't until he elevated what happened. And so, but yeah, I mean, we've seen this all along. I mean, there's that, and this doesn't minimize, because any tragedy deserves to be investigated. So please do not mistake my comments for suggesting that somehow one life is worth more than others. The only thing I'm going to say, though, is that pretty white girl who was a social influencer who got killed by her boyfriend, and he was they were vacationing, and it was like a year and a half ago, and they're still trying to figure out what happened to her. And I think they're going to do a mini series about it. Those are two lives as well. But for some reason, the entire nation was interested in what happened to them.
Right.
And
I remember that.
It doesn't happen the same way when the victims or the dead people are people of color. And I just think that if we care about suspicious deaths, then we need to care about all of them.
Right. What do we have to do in order to get the same type of justice, Attorney Weiss, or the same type of empathy and coverage?
Be a white girl influencer. I mean, Attorney Turner said it. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, this is tragic. This shouldn't happen to anybody. I don't care race, religion, creed. I care nothing. No individual should be killed. Period.
Well, my question is, why is it that it's so easy to say, okay, we believe murder suicide?
Well, I mean, look, they did an investigation.
Are saying no.
But I mean, look, I've spent some time at the morgue and the coroner's office when I was in law school and then after law school, and they can really figure out the suicide part, right? I mean, because there would be gunshot residue on the hand. Right. It has to do with the angle. So I don't know how they could screw that up. The murder part I get, right? You know, to say he shot his brother, and I get it, but then he shot himself, and I don't know. Something's just not right here. And I think this is hopefully from this show alone, but, you know, in general, this is going to get some national attention. And let's get this family the answers that they want. I mean, they just want to know what happened here. Right. And they have every right to know that.
Right. I agree. All right, everybody. This is just so sad to me. All right, everybody. Be sure to hit that like button. The likes aren't liking. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you already subscribed, be sure to hit the share button. Turn on your notifications. And as always, keep the comments coming. We see all your comments. Next up, Dallas Cowboys star CB Lab hit the end zone, but the NFL hit back. His nose wipe celebration banned. But is this about sportsmanship or another attempt to tone police black expression? All right, I'm going to go to you, Attorney Weiss, because you are a resident sports guy. Do sports leagues have the legal right to regulate players' expression? That's what I've always wanted to know. And why isn't it regulated the same across the board for all players, instead of it appearing to be strongly enforced against the African-American players?
All right. So first of all, and I had to look it up, right? I do not like CeeDee Lamb just because he plays for the Cowboys. I think he's a very talented football player, but I'm a Giants fan, and Giants fan can't root for anything in Dallas. But I did have to look up what this was, and I had to figure out that was. That has to do with, it is supposedly, and I don't know, a gang-affiliated sign. That it was, the nose wiping is a gang sign associated with the Bloods used to indicate somebody is untrustworthy. So because of the fact that it is promoting something that is gang-affiliated or something that is wrong, that's where the problem is, right? So some of the celebrations were, you know, they were shooting at people, not allowed. Some of the celebrations had to do with, you know, like throwing fake punches, not allowed. But you see the linemen, they get down and it looks like they're rowing a boat as a team. That's celebrated. I think CeeDee Lamb jumped into the Salvation Army bucket during either the Thanksgiving game or the Christmas game, celebrated, no problem. So it has to do with what that symbol is associated with, and it's gang violence. So
Okay.
and look, to be totally honest, most of the players that celebrate are the wide receivers and the running backs. They are
Well, those are the ones that usually are scoring the touchdowns.
and they're predominantly black. So
Right.
that's why the league is cracking down. You don't see the big offensive lineman who's, the kid from Iowa who kind of looks like me except 3 times the size celebrating a touchdown because they don't get to touch the ball. So by the time they get to the end zone after they're out of breath, the celebration's over. So
let me ask something. Let me ask something really quickly, because you met my brother. You worked with my brother. He worked
I know
in
your
this.
brother too.
Oh, that's right. You know my brother. He worked in this division where he used to, when he first started with the NFL, he had to give out fines for people that didn't follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell you right now, who knew what a nose wipe was?
That's
Not
what
me.
I want to know.
You can't tell me that there was no NFL official that knew what that nose wipe was.
I doubt there are any.
I think someone snitched on him.
I did, but he came into the league in 2020, and that's when he started. So it took them almost 5 years to figure out what that was.
Oh, so he's been doing it the whole time he's been in the league.
Doing it the whole time. He's always been known for celebrations, and that's great. Like there was I forgot who it was, but one of the guys went into the end zone, took out his cell phone, a flip phone, and pretended like he was making a call.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Fine. And guess what? The camera guy who worked for the Dolphins, who was a white young man, he got suspended because he handed him the phone and was part of it. He's the only one that got fined in that situation. Not the player, just the camera guy.
That's interesting. So I guess they are all hot on his trails, and they're like, "What is this nose wipe thing?" And so they start Googling. They start, asking friends and people, and because they were looking for a reason to get this guy.
Now I gotta tell my kids this soccer season, they got allergies. Don't be wiping your nose if you make a goal because you might get in trouble. Attorney Weiss has taught me some things right now. I knew none of these things.
I don't understand what's
and don't rip off your shirts either,
Oh, that's right. That's since Brandy Chastain days.
Yep,
These are my boys, though, so no one will care.
All right, speaking of not caring, I care about this next story. I love some Trina the rapper. Trina, the baddest bee in the game, is now the most loyal wife in a rap drama gone wrong. Her husband's rap sheet reads longer than his wedding vows. But how many arrests does it take to become before love becomes a liability? I was like, finally, Trina has found love. Finally, Trina is getting married. Okay, let's go to our resident marriage counselor lawyer, Shatan Tellers. What's going on here? And what is he just a bad dude, or what's the word?
We gotta give homage to Trina because we ain't talked about her in a while. Like, what was her heyday? Like 2000 to 2005 when she was like, "You don't know Nam," right? That was our jam. Everybody's like, "Hey, we got this," and we're all rooting for Trina because she was the baddest bitch in the game. I mean, she came on the heels of like Little Kim. She was before Nicki Minaj. She showed those girls how to do it. And she fell in love. She hasn't been married long, but apparently Swerve, I'd never heard of Swerve until I started researching the story, right? His name is Benjamin Curse Jr., but he went by Swerve. Apparently he had a career. I don't know any of his songs, so I won't be quoting them. But he has an anger management problem, right? And I guess when you have waited for love as long as she has and you find it, you decide to be loyal. I could take a page out of Trina's book because I got to say, if this happened to me, we would be talking about my divorce and not my loyalty to him. But I think probably what happened, in all fairness to her, is she felt like he was protecting her. So some of this arose out of a traffic stop. And apparently Attorney Weiss probably knows a lot about this because this happened in Miami. And apparently Miami PD don't play. Nope. And so, and apparently neither does her husband. So here's the thing about the bad boys, right? I had my bad boy. I get it. They make you feel safe. You don't focus on the fact that they really need some Valium. You focus on the fact that they are strong and want to protect you, but he went too far. So according to everything that I've read, there was a minor traffic incident and it escalated because of her husband's response to it, right? And it happened a couple of years ago. And somebody made accidental contact. It wasn't quite the equivalent of somebody stepping on someone's white Air Force Ones and then they get dead, but it was kind of like that. Like it was just a minor thing, was accidental touching by a pedestrian. He went off, he assaults somebody, and so now there's serious consequences for that. And the real thing that always gets me about these stories, and I'll admit, I do not ride for the men like I ride for the women, but I'm about to ride for Trina on this point. Why can't Swerve, SWURV, right? Why can't that grown man be responsible for his grown man actions? Why is this connected to her and trying to detract from her brand? So that would be the only thing that I would say, like,
because he's got nothing without her. Who the heck was Swerve? Swerve away. He can't even spell it right. I mean, you gotta figure out a better way of spelling it. So he's riding her coattails, and that's what happens when you allow somebody to ride your coattails. When that person screws up, you are the one that's being held responsible. Look, Attorney Turner, if you have a paralegal or a legal assistant and he or she screws up a filing, who's responsible for it? We are. Same thing. She is the alpha in that household, and she's going to be responsible for him like she would a pit bull.
But Attorney Weiss, that highlights the challenge for successful women. And I know that this isn't the story we wanted to promote, but I just want to bring this out. Is that in relationships, right? In the marriage, she wanted to promote, I'm sure, the notion that they were equals, right? But when he effed up, to Attorney Weiss's point, she was the only person who had something to lose. And that creates a real issue in the relationship because often the male wants to be the dominant one, but they don't necessarily have the same thing to lose. And so now Trina, I'm sure she's supporting him in public, but in private, her advisors are like, look, girl, you could lose it all if you can.
But let's think about this. Trina's not new at this. She's true to this. Trina's been doing this for over 30 years. She knows that who she dates is a reflection of her. She knows what the person does that's with her is going to get talked about. It's going to be covered. So we can't pretend like, oh, now she's got to separate herself. She knew. She knows. She's been a part of this industry for 3 decades.
She knew what she was getting into.
But she doesn't get the opportunity to be in love too.
Huh?
Doesn't she have the opportunity to be in love too?
Absolutely. We want her to be in love. That's the best part about it. I was glad that she finally found someone that she wanted to settle down and marry. But she can't pretend like that if you marry a hothead and he does hothead things, that she's going to escape the gauntlet because of what he did.
I think Christine R. said it right. She's stupid. Let's move on.
Jason, you have no compassion. Jason, order in the court. You have no compassion.
All I will say in Trina's defense is that my ex was a hothead, and sometimes you minimize that until it explodes. And then
clearly you got 3 babies with that hothead.
Well, it exploded a lot.
Maybe we shouldn't drink. You like that hothead?
I did. He had a lot of talent.
He is like, what exactly? You said,
oh no, I know exactly, but you turned almost as red as me. So
she said he had a lot of talent. Oh,
but you said she liked the hot heads.
she likes the hot head. She likes it too. We know Miss Turner, attorney, counselor Turner, likes a hot man. That we do know. All right, everybody, this is a part of the show. If we go back down to cases and we find out who's guilty or not guilty in the court of law. Leshon Johnson, is he guilty or not guilty for daggone fighting with dogs? Attorney Turner.
She's on mute.
I'm still recovering from what we were just talking about. But in the court of public opinion, he's guilty, and he also might be doing some time.
That's right, Attorney Weiss.
He's a dumbass who belongs in the doghouse.
Oh, I believe it. Leshon Johnson, we're going to find you guilty. Guilty as charged in the court of public opinion because, dude, you got caught years ago doing this. You should have known that you were on the radar. And not only were you on the radar, you were on the radar so good that they let you do it for more than 5 years, knowing that you were doing it just so that they could build a case to really put you in a slammer this time. Sad, sad, sad. Next up, Kenya Moore. Is Kenya Moore guilty or not guilty of loving the wrong man? Attorney Turner, what say you?
Oh, yes. She is guilty of loving the wrong man. However, you know what Kenya said, and I respect this, and I believe this for myself, right? And I don't want to misquote her. What she says is that she believes in love. She's a romantic. She believes in love.
Oh, I don't believe that shit.
She's going to get happily ever after. She's going to get happily ever after.
Nope. All right, Attorney Weiss, what say you? What say you? Guilty or not guilty for loving the wrong man?
I think she's guilty of finding and loving the wrong man.
All right, I'm Alan. I'm going to find Kenya Moore guilty. Guilty of wanting to be in love, guilty for wanting to be having a child, and guilty for wanting an attractive man to film with on her show. She is guilty for loving the wrong man. Next up, the twins. Oh, no, there's nothing to find guilty or not guilty there. Next up, CeeDee Lamb. Is he guilty or not guilty for breaking NFL policy? Attorney Turner?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to say not guilty. Maybe he ain't know.
All right, Attorney Weiss.
Look, I think he knew. He did it now. And again, didn't get in trouble for it. They just said, do it next year and you will be fined. So the warning was given. It was public. He hasn't gotten penalized or fined or anything for it so far, but they're telling him, you do it next year. It's a violent gesture. You're in violation of the league, period. So he's put on notice.
Got it. I'm Al Reynolds and I'm the judge here. We're going to find CeeDee Lamb not guilty. Not guilty for doing anything but being entertaining and being black in the NFL. And if they're doing something that they don't know what it is and they can't figure out, they want it stopped. And especially at that league, down at that front office with the Cowboys. Next up, that's like a whole nother situation. Trina, is Trina guilty or not guilty for loving the wrong man as well? Attorney Turner, what say you?
I'm laughing because somebody said that Attorney Weiss was guilty of tanning browner than Al Reynolds in Miami this week.
I live in South Florida. I've never done tanning. I've never done bronzing. I go out and garden. So I guess I got lucky.
That's funny.
I just think it's the fact that I have lights and he doesn't have lights. All right, Attorney Turner, is Trina guilty or not guilty for loving a bad boy?
Trina
a hothead.
Trina's guilty of loving a bad boy and a hothead, and I hope that she's getting all of the benefits associated with it and not just the media.
And Attorney Turner, what would those benefits be?
They can be a lot of fun.
Attorney Weiss, is she guilty for having too much fun with a hothead?
Are you talking about Attorney Turner? Yes, she's guilty of having too much fun with the hothead.
Attorney Weiss.
I look. Trina knew what she was doing when she got into it. She's like you said, she's not a rookie. She's been in the industry for 30 years. So look, made the bed, sleeping with it. So go for it.
All right, I'm Alan. I'm the judge here in Celebrity Court. We're gonna find Trina guilty for being in love. Love makes you do some crazy things sometime, and this is an example. All right, everybody, from locker rooms to luxury courtrooms, tonight reminded us that fame isn't a shield, but in fact, it's a magnifying glass. We've seen the messy, the tragic, and just the plain outrage associated with our cases tonight, but beneath the gossip lies a greater truth, and that truth is called accountability. Doesn't care about who you are, how many rap songs you've written, or how many balls you've caught or run. So here's the real verdict. If you live in the spotlight, be ready for all of the heat as well as the shadows. Because in this courtroom, hype won't save you and silence won't protect you. I'm Al Reynolds, and your judge, in this session of Celebrity Court is officially adjourned. But you, the jury of public opinion, you're always in session. Everyone, please have a great night, and thank you for joining us in Celebrity Court.